Good morning and welcome back to our news update coming to you live from Warsaw. I'm Salia Strzemska. And we begin with US tech billionaire and head of the Department of Government Efficiency in Trump's administration, Elon Musk, who is once again threatening to cut off Ukraine's access to Starlink, demanding that sanctions be placed on top 10 of Ukrainian oligarchs. Since Russia's full-scale invasion began, Musk's SpaceX has provided Ukraine with tens of thousands of Starlink terminals. These devices allow Ukrainian soldiers to maintain communication under difficult frontline conditions.
I literally challenged Putin to one-on-one physical combat over Ukraine, and my Starlink system is the backbone of the Ukrainian army. Their entire frontline would collapse if I turn it off. What I am sickened by is years of slaughter in a stalemate that Ukraine will inevitably lose. Anyone who really cares, really thinks, and really understands wants the meat grinder to stop. Peace now.
Authorities in Ukraine have reported that Russian attacks claimed the lives of a further 6 people on Sunday. The country's air defense units shot down 73 of the 119 drones that Moscow's forces launched overnight Saturday into Sunday. Local media report that at least 29 people were also wounded in strikes on the Kherson and Donetsk regions. Emergency services are still sifting through debris after Moscow intensified attacks the day before, killing at least 25 people. President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russia's actions show that Moscow is not thinking about how to end the war. Meanwhile, Russian media have reported strong explosions near industrial facilities in several regions of the country. The violence comes as the Kremlin claims its troops have recaptured 3 more settlements seized by Ukrainian forces in the Kursk region last summer. Realistic proposals are on the table, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said on his social media. He announced that Ukrainian diplomatic and military representatives will hold a meeting with an American team on Tuesday in Saudi Arabia to resume diplomatic discussions. Zelensky indicated that he himself will not participate in the talks.
Today, a highly productive meeting took place in Kyiv between diplomatic teams of Ukraine and the UK. We discussed our joint steps that could bring us closer to peace and accelerate diplomatic efforts. I'm grateful for the support. Ukraine is determined to do everything to end this war with a just and lasting peace as soon as possible. Next week, I will begin with a visit to Saudi Arabia. After my meeting on Monday with the Crown Prince, Ukrainian diplomatic and military representatives will stay for a meeting on Tuesday with the American team. The Ukrainian team will include Andriy Yermak, Andriy Sybiha, Rustem Umierov and Pavlo Palisa. On our side, we are fully committed to constructive dialogue, and we hope to discuss and agree on the necessary decisions and steps. Ukraine has been seeking peace from the very first second of this war. Realistic proposals are on the table. The key is to move quickly and effectively.
The US has vetoed a proposal put forward by the G7 countries to establish a task force dealing with the issue of Russia's shadow fleet. This is yet another move by the American administration indicating a softened stance on Moscow. The term shadow fleet refers to vessels that the Russians operate under flags of convenience, often belonging to other countries, in order to avoid US and European sanctions. There are now more than 630 tankers in this fleet. It is estimated that they transport around 70% of all Russian seaborne oil. Some of the ships have also been suspected of damaging underwater infrastructure in the Baltic Sea. Trump doesn't understand the Russian negotiating position very well, and his approach towards reaching a peace deal by making concessions to Moscow is unlikely to be successful. This is according to George Barros from the Institute for the Study of War, who was a recent guest on TVP World's Ukraine this week.
I don't think it's going to be a successful strategy in the long term, to be frank. I think the president has to go through a journey of discovery in talking to the Russians, in discovering that actually it's the Russians that are the obstacle to peace here. Putin can stop the war whenever he wants to, but his demands are officially and continue to be officially that the Ukrainians cede territory that the Russians currently don't occupy, 4 provinces of Ukraine, and that Ukraine undertake a series of other concessions. I think Trump doesn't understand the Russian negotiating position very well. once he actually realizes to the extent to which the Russians are unwilling to compromise, that will then force President Trump's hand to move in a different direction.
Nordic and Baltic countries have pledged to increase support for Ukraine as the US suspends its military aid to Kyiv. The announcement came on Saturday from Danish Defense Minister Poulsen after a meeting with his counterparts from Norway, Sweden, Finland, Iceland and the Baltic states. Poulsen stated that Denmark would provide additional military equipment to help form new Ukrainian army brigades. The ministers also discussed increasing ammunition supplies to Ukraine. And now on a domestic front, an increase in the number of Polish men to serve in voluntary drills, withdrawal from anti-landmines and cluster ammunition conventions, and future plans to acquire nuclear weapons. Warsaw sets the pace for its allies in the wake of the Rearm Europe plan announced in Brussels last week.
What the Prime Minister of Poland said in Parliament on Friday has stirred up a discussion across Europe.
If I were to suggest a return to basic, compulsory service, I would say this. We have several models. One of the valued ones is the Swiss model, that is not mandatory, but there are incentives that could make men decide to undergo annual training.
Warsaw's goal is to have 500,000 men, including reserves, who will be ready for war. That's 200,000 more than the previous target and 300,000 more than currently.
Prime Minister Tusk also said that Poland might opt out from two conventions. This is the Ottawa Convention and the Dublin Convention that ban the cluster munitions and anti-personnel mines.
There is no point in fooling yourself. The problem is that in our environment, those we may be afraid of, or those who are at war, they all have it.
But that's not all. Poland is also seriously considering France's nuclear umbrella proposal. Warsaw wants nukes.
The whole government, and especially Prime Minister Tusk, explore every possible option how to ensure our security.
On the other side of the border, Belarus, Russia, they do not observe any kind of treaties. So in order to be secure, we need to react properly. So again, better late than never.
Poland has placed a priority on ramping up production of weapons and overcoming bottlenecks that have slowed down production in the past.
For many years, it was a question of money, right? And because if we look at the military spending, the times of increased military spending are quite recent. It's not been always like this, right? So I think first money, but once you secure money, there is a certain delay for ramping up production, right? Because the production capacity was just not there.
The announcements by the Polish Prime Minister have raised some eyebrows abroad. Germany's public broadcaster ARD writes.
What Tusk then says is surprising, even to regular listeners.
Referring to the idea of Poland withdrawing from the Ottawa and Dublin conventions.
The fundamental underlying red thread behind all of this is that the security environment has changed. It changed when Russia invaded Ukraine for the second time in the high-intensity kinetic conflict that's been going on since February of 2022. And it will change in the aftermath of whatever agreement it is made.
Polish politicians seem to agree that when it comes to security, unity is of the essence. Tusk's proposals are likely to receive bipartisan support.
And on that very note, preparations should begin years or months in advance, not just weeks before an emergency. That's according to Joshua Bergin, NSL program coordinator at Warsaw Security Forum. He made the remark in an interview with TVP World while discussing Tusk's plan for mass military exercises in Poland.
Well, we certainly understand that environments that are under threat, if there is a civil defense, if there's policies, procedures, plans, understanding of what should happen, that this itself serves as a massive deterrent. Is it merit? Is it warranted? Is it absolutely necessary right now? Probably not. But you don't prepare for a crisis when it's weeks away. You prepare for a crisis when it's years or months away, to where the actions, the behaviors become routine, almost muscle memory. And the notion of a civil defense that's well organized, incredibly articulated, has done drills, exercises. People know who to call within the phone tree, where to report, who to evacuate. This is all stuff that gets done years ahead of time, and it is important. And frankly, I think it's the right thing for Poland. I think it's the right thing for Taiwan right now. I think it's the right thing for the Baltic states. Anybody that's facing a near border threat that doesn't have a civil defense plan, well organized, well executed, well planned out, the expectation that somehow society is going to be resilient in the day of assault is fantasy.
European leaders have been calling for strength and unity among European militaries for many years now. Seems like a perfect moment for this desire to finally materialize. That's according to Robert Gonchi from the Migration Research Institute.
Currently, we see that the European states should focus on their security not only from the NATO itself, where there is also already a very high responsibility to reach the 2%, or it seems like maybe even more now. Certain states starting to propose that new taxes should be introduced to the population. For example, the Estonian foreign minister mentioned that maybe they will introduce a new tax for the population implicitly for the cost of the defense. Now, this can turn into a European trend, but also at the same time focusing on defense on the European Union level as well. Now, this is a very new situation. It has never seen before. But if we recall, European leaders has called for a strong European united forces for more than a decade now. And now it seems like the perfect opportunity to do that.
Germany may soon have a new government. The CDU-CSU coalition and the Social Democrats have signed a preliminary cooperation agreement. They managed to reach consensus on key issues, including migration, industry development, and the economy.
The first step towards forming a government in Germany has been made. The CDU-CSU parties, victorious in the general elections, are to form a coalition with the Social Democrats. The joint declaration for the coalition was signed on Saturday.
We have a joint paper that forms the basis for the coalition negotiations, which we may start next week. In conclusion, I would like to say a few words about this. We have essentially reached agreement on three major issues. One is the issue of migration, the second is the issue of finance, and the third is the issue of the labor market and the economy.
Prior to talks, the issue of migration was to be the main hurdle to overcome for the future coalition, as CDU-CSU put it at the forefront of their electoral campaign. However, the talks between Christian Democrats and Social Democrats were to be constructive, according to the SPD co-leader.
And I want to say this very clearly for myself here, that if so soon after elections we have reached an agreement with the CDU, CSU and SPD despite very different principles, points of view, opinions and also different characters, if we can manage to agree on such fundamental, important issues of German, national, European and international politics, if we manage to build bridges together, then we can also succeed elsewhere in this country.
Other hallmark projects of the future coalition include overhauling the debt brake and creating a €500 billion infrastructure fund to boost Germany's economy.
The Belarusian diaspora in Lithuania provides the Lukashenko regime with opportunities for intelligence activities and poses a threat to the country's national security. That's according to a recent report released by Lithuania's Department of Security. The document also reveals that the Belarusian intelligence services are forcing members of the diaspora to cooperate under the threat of harm to their family in Belarus. Belarusian intelligence services are reportedly instructing individuals to collect both overt and covert information on Lithuanian institutions, the Belarusian diaspora, and the democratic opposition. As many members of the diaspora voluntarily travel to Belarus, they may be detained and forced to cooperate with the authorities. Similar risks also apply to Lithuanian citizens visiting Belarus. And with this, we conclude our news recap. Thank you for watching, and please stay tuned for more.